Camera rolling?
To speed.
There we go.
All right. Preston Langford interview, take one. Mr. Langford, would you mind just stating your name, your age, and your occupation?
I'm James P. Langford. I'm 94, born 1/3/26. What else would you like to know?
Well, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood growing up? I know you worked on a farm a bit.
My childhood growing up, I was a sharecropper's son. We farming, you work for a landowner that you are working for a place to live and raise food and have a cash crop which you pay half most time to the landowner and you get half for your survival. You don't have much chance to make a lot of money, but you're doing something that you enjoy doing if you're farming. You're close to God and you see the things of nature. That's really nice. But you learn to cope with hardship and doing without. But it teaches you to know that you're going to have to work hard to better yourself in life. So you go forward from there.
What would you say is the most difficult part about being a sharecropper's son, and what would be the most satisfying?
The most difficult part about being a sharecropper's son is you get poor schooling because you're moving all the time. Every year you move from one location to another, but you have the satisfaction of watching stuff grow and learning from nature what's really happening in life.
So I kind of just, I know that you're a woodworker. Is that true? You do a little bit of woodworking?
All my life. I knew from sharecropping that I had to find a trade that would make me money because I did not have money to go to school. So I thought being a carpenter, I would be paid to learn, and I could take that learning as a carpenter and build things, and enjoying working with wood, hopefully, and being a carpenter and building, I would accumulate enough that when I got ready to retire, I could retire and build furniture and do things to enjoy life that I enjoyed doing. And there's nothing more pleasure in making beautiful furniture for people. I actually cut the trees here where I live. We sawmilled them, and I took them from a tree to a stump to the furniture that I made. I made furniture for all my children, grandchildren, and friends. Anyone that bring me a picture, I'd make them what I could, the best I could.
What would you say is your favorite wood to work with?
Well, poplar is very easy to work with. Cherry is very beautiful. Oak is very sturdy. There's an oak table there, and a cherry one here. It depends on what you're trying to create as to what wood you need to work with. Poplar you can refinish to look like cherry or most anything. You just use a different stain.
When did you move to Clarksville, Tennessee?
Oh, in the early 60s, late 50s.
All right. So, something I really want to know is that you probably have a lot of wisdom. My dad said that no one lives to be 94 years old being a complete dumbass.
Well,
So, you're probably pretty wise.
okay, you asked me about wisdom. The wisdom is much better than being smart. If you have wisdom, you know that the things you don't know with smartness, that you can go to a professional and find the necessary answers to do what you need to do to accomplish the means you're looking forward to. And this is accomplished largely through wisdom.
And so, what is one mistake you think every young adult should make to learn from?
The one mistake that the young people can learn from is overspending and then have to try hard to get out of debt. The other mistake is mistreating their bodies, because your body is your lifeline, and if you can not take care of it and stay healthy, you're going to be in bad shape.
So, I kind of wanted to ask, if there's a piece of advice you'd give to someone, who's in their 20s and then in their 30s, 40s, and then 50s.
The piece of advice that I give to people in the 30s, 40s, and 50s is, like I said, take care of your body. Your body is going to take care of you.
And so, do you mind if I kind of ask you a little bit about your time serving in the military?
It'd be fine to ask me about my time in the military.
All right. When were you enlisted, and what branch did you serve in?
I was enlisted in 1950, got out 56. I was in the Army Infantry and served in the Korean War.
And do you have kind of a hilarious moment while serving over there? Kind of a...
The first hilarious moment that I had in the Army was when I was crossing the Pacific in a boat. At that time, they shipped you, they didn't fly you. I lost a filling, and by the time I got to the front lines, jaw was swollen. I was in terrific pain. The captain told me that I was to do something one morning, and I told him he could just shoot me. That I could not work or do anything with the pain I had. So in turn, he said he would call his driver, and he would come almost within just a little closer than a mile to the front lines and pick me up, take me back to division, and I would stay until my tooth was fixed. So we went to division. I got in the dentist chair, and the dentist pulled dead in my mouth, pulled 2 teeth out and threw them on a plate, and told me to open my mouth. And I just tucked my head, shook it, I could hardly speak, and told him he hadn't even got the bad tooth. In turn, he said, with the pain, I didn't know where the tooth was. He'd pulled it. I had 2 bad wisdom teeth. He'd pull one of them, and he's going to get the other one while I was there, so I wouldn't have to come back. This he done. On the way back to the front line, it started raining. Your Jeeps are stripped down in combat air. They have no top, no windshield. So I was wringing wet. I got to my foxhole. It was full of water. I dipped it out with my helmet, trenched around it so the water wouldn't run in, slipped into the foxhole in the mud, knowing by the next morning that I'd be so sick they would take me out on the stretcher and maybe I could come home. But in turn, the next morning I felt good. I was wet for 3 days. I was never sick. And this proved what it means to be healthy, have a good body. This is very necessary in life.
How was communicating back home while you were overseas?
If you was lucky, you'd get a letter in 2 or 3 weeks from home to the front line. The only communication was by mail. So you'd have to write letters, and in turn they would write back to you.
What are some of the biggest life lessons serving in Korea taught you?
The one lesson that I learned is you've got to do what you're told. I had a very bad experience. I was in communications. I went from rifleman to commo sergeant. The captain told me one day that there was a platoon to go to the enemy's front line and capture one of the enemy soldiers and bring him back for interrogation, and that I was to string a telephone line out ahead of time through no man's land where could be hooked on to, that we could communicate with battalion and communicate with the lieutenant in charge of the securing the enemy from the line, and then running this line out with my wireman. We were caught, or they saw us and started shooting, and we hid under a rock. So I learned you stay hid from the enemy and until dark, and then we went back. And then later, when we were supposed to capture the enemy, when we got in position, it was very obvious that they knew we were coming, and they come from behind their line like bees. We were pinned down, and we were supposed to have support in case this happened. We called for support. It never showed up. And our captain that was with me in the outpost that was right behind the action said he'd go see what happened. He didn't come back. So I called the lieutenant and told him we would set the hill on fire with asphalt. Not asphalt, matches, what is it? The
Phosphorus?
Phosphorus round. I told the lieutenant we would call for phosphorus round. They burn bad, but they don't kill. And while this was happening, that he and the men could pull back, they could bring the wounded and leave the dead, which he done. And I went out with them, and the next morning I called the North Koreans and asked for a truce so we could come over and pick up the dead, which they granted. My learning there was you could hold your cool, but you got to stay within the command. And the North Koreans were very cooperative in letting us pick up our dead, and we did the same for them at the time. It was quite a learning experience.
When you were serving, whenever you were scared and uncertain, what would you do to kind of help get you through, kind of the dark times of serving over there? What would you tell yourself, or what would you think?
What I would tell myself in dark times was to forget the dark times and think about the good things. And you knew at the bad times, and when the going is bad, you just dug in a little deeper and depend on your friends, your fellow soldiers. You find, I found a friend that I was with from basic training till I come home. We once realized that we would keep each other's back, so we arranged it so we could stay together, and did until we come home. But you've got to depend on your friend. You've got to seek the Lord's help. It's very important.
How did you feel when you got the news that that you were headed home? Do you remember where you were?
When you in the Army, to get home in combat, you rack up points. If you served 1 year in combat, you automatically get to come home. So I knew, and I was very relieved, because I was not for killing and seeing people killed. I had told my captain at one time that he had to give me a job that I did not have to shoot at the enemy. So I was luckily, he made me commo sergeant. The commo sergeants do not fight there like medics. They have to keep communication going. And I was so relieved to leave it all and come home, because I had a family here that I wanted to be with.
When you came home, what occupation did you start after Korea?
Well, when I came home from Korea, I was already doing carpenter work. So when I came home, first of all, I got married. And I went back to doing carpenter work and building, because from carpentry you learn to build, and building is very rewarding, seeing things develop, and that's also rewarding financially. So that's what I went right back to, was what I was doing before I was drafted into the war.
And so you continued carpentry, and you're also a business owner. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and through life, you've got to figure out how you're going to feed the family. So with my carpentry, I worked hard to take care of the family, and I tried to, we had a rule of thumb: if you work hard enough 3 days to feed the family, you have 3 days to look for things to accomplish financially, things like I knew that being first, doing things was rewarding, that you can pass on, that to be a successful business person, you look around at what you think would be best for the community and give it to them before anyone else does. When I was on the farm, when they come out with a self-trying hay baler, an older man agreed to take me as a partner, and we had the first self-tying hay baler. When I went to Florida, I had a partner, and we put in the first subdivision for trailer park subdivision. These things that I done along with my carpentry work on the business end. I come to Clarksville, they didn't have a car wash, automatic car wash. I built the first automatic car wash. When they come out with pre-engineered steel buildings, I was the first to start putting them up and selling them. So this was the business end that I worked along with my carpentry end. I kept doing that until I retired at 65. But the other half of my life, I was working on the business end that makes you money, work makes you a living. And so you have to work at that end to have both, and you can come out ahead.
When there are days that you don't necessarily want to get out of bed and kind of face the world, what do you tell yourself?
Oh, when the days you don't want to get up out of bed, first of all, you remember you set out to do something every day. You just plan ahead. You know that you need to get out of bed. So if you have something planned, then you just tell yourself you're going to get out of bed and you're going to do it. And if you make yourself get out of bed, do whatever you plan to do, it just keeps you going forever. I know. I'm 94.
So when you retired at the age of 65, did you pick up any new hobbies? How did you spend your days?
Well, that's when I really started my hobby. When I retired at 65, I had been lucky, and I was financially able enough that I could do what I wanted to do. So I cut trees, made furniture, and traveled. But me and my wife had traveled all through married life, because that was a hobby we enjoyed, and I enjoyed gardening. So I had really started gardening that I'd picked up when I was a farmer, and carpentry, making furniture, which I had picked up as a builder. I knew I had lots of equipment that I could use, and I had enough know-how I'd put together that I could build anything that somebody would bring me a picture and say, let's do this, and I enjoyed doing it.
What was one of the favorite things you have ever built?
Oh, one thing that I enjoyed building that was a little different is a library chair, which is a chair that makes into a ladder, which is unique. I built game tables, which fold up and set against the wall, or open up and make a card table or whatever. It's kind of unique. I built an entertainment center that was unique in the fact that you open the doors and they've got the drawers and shelves on the door. And you don't see many of those, but they're fun. The hardest thing I ever built was a baby bed. So after my first grandchild, I told the rest of the daughters, for the other grandchildren, we would buy beds.
How did you meet your wife? And would you mind just telling me a little bit about her and your marriage?
I met my wife in the 4th grade. That was a long time ago. But she saw the world like I saw. She wanted the same things I wanted. So I knew she was who I'd like to marry. We were not married until I was 26. But she was a person that enjoyed life and doing the things that I enjoyed. And so it was very rewarding. She was smart and worked with me, and we had to raise a family, which we both wanted, and had a very rewarding life together, going everywhere together. We knew togetherness is one of the most important things to get along and understand each other. You've got to have love and forgiveness and enjoy life together.
Where was one of your favorite places y'all traveled together?
Okay. We went to Europe 3 or 4 times. Switzerland was our nicest trip. We went on several cruises, and the Alaskan cruise and the Panama cruise was my 2 best cruises. They were educational and very rewarding as far as pleasure and learning and having a good time.
What would you say is the most, wait for this, but what would you say is the most important characteristic or trait to have when it comes to being a husband and a father?
The most important
If
trait.
you just wait, we'll let this ring through.
Okay.
Looking real good.
Are we ready?
You're looking real good now. We'll just wait for this to go through.
Just so we can hear you well.
Oh, I don't hear good.
But yeah, what is one trait you need to have when being a husband and a father?
Oh, the trade you need to be a husband and a father. You've got to have a lot of understanding, a lot of forgiveness, and willing to work out the problems that will come forth, and there'll be many. But if you have love and forgiveness and understanding,